Greetings, friends and family, brothers and sisters all around this beautiful world. Greetings from sunny Nicaragua. I just would like to say a couple words to you today about the subject of spiritual practice. Before we speak of spiritual practice, so let us just speak of practice itself. If somebody wants to learn the piano or the guitar, they say, let me practice, and they get better at it. And they say if you want to be a professional baseball player or basketball player or tennis player, you need to practice, a certain amount of practice. Same thing for the practice of carpentry, gardening, or anything else that you do. They sometimes say that practice makes perfect. Well, what you practice at, you get good at, don't you? I hope we agree on that. So you practice, you get good, and you know the interesting thing is when people are good at things, they seem to like to do them, don't they? I hope I'm not presuming too much to say so, that when you're good at something, there's a good chance you like to do it, especially when you've invested so much in practicing it. That leads us to a question. Do we practice what we like, or we like what we practice? Is the chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken? Either way, we do know that once we have practiced something and got good at it, and it gives us a sense of satisfaction and pride, or communion with others, or service, we like to do it. So, what about a world where, or a nation where the practice is of war? What do militaries do but practice war? Now they say they do that because they want to stop war, but I don't think that makes sense, because I think that when you practice it, you get good at it, and then you want to do it. And the logical conclusion is that we have a world full of war. Now in the United States, the greatest arms dealer and military hegemon in the world, in history perhaps, what is that one thing that most people firmly agree is most essential to get anything done? To do anything, to make progress on any one thing, any kind of project, good or bad, what do people need? And that's capital investment, money. Money gets things done. That's what everybody tells me. I happen to have a different opinion, but the point being that most people believe that money gets things done, and studying and practicing something makes you really good at it, making you inclined to do it. The United States practices the art of war with and if you look for what the value is, that what the country of the United States wants to practice, really wants to make practice perfect, it is war. And this is actually stated. It's a stated policy objective of the United States. So I'm not saying anything controversial here. However, what might be controversial is a suggestion based on the foregoing discussion that we should think that if we practiced the art of peace and studied the art of war no more, that we would actually get better at peace. And what we would get good at through practice, that being the practice of peace, that we would practice peace, and that therefore peace would flourish. Just like if you have every student practice to play a particular instrument, you'll have a lot of that played. So there we have a very simple issue of practice. How much money goes into the practice of peace in the United States? That would be the litmus test, the acid test, based on the values and presuppositions of the vast majority of the United States citizens, that the biggest military budget in the world, the most obscene amount of money going into the practice of war, practicing, preparing, and not just practicing, constantly going to war, constantly encouraging war through proxy battles, through dumping weapons into every backyard in the world. And of course those karmic outgoes have negative consequences. When you have U.S. citizens, soldiers come back and should kill themselves, suicide being the biggest enemy because of this self-defeating proposition. I have a feeling if you had an army of peacemakers instead of an army of killers, you would have a lower suicide rate in your army. So then we take, that's practice. So let's go back to spiritual practice. We go through an infinite number of moments in life, or perhaps a finite number, whichever way it is. As we go through in every moment, let us simplify and say that we can agree, if we can agree to certain spiritual practices in general as being good, being right, being rita, to use the old Sanskrit word, rita, derivative of English word righteous. So if we go back to the Rita Dharma, then we can say that those things are in accordance with Rita and with Dharma, with grace, with divinity, are compassion, just to name a few: compassion and unconditional love, loving kindness, peacefulness, generosity, gratitude, forgiveness, empathy, imagination, creativity. Did we say gratitude? Gratitude for the great ocean, gratitude for all living things, reverence for life, generosity, patience, very useful, trust when patience is failing, forgiveness again. We take these: generosity, gratitude, forgiveness, love, kindness, forgiveness, peace, gentleness. Take all those qualities, and then you take any possible array of things that can happen any moment, and you find that in every moment you can choose one of those spiritual practices to do. And if you take the list of them and use them accordingly, that they're all kind of connected, and they at some point what you find is that that those are the only things you dwell on. If you're harmed, if you're cheated, you love your enemy, pray for those that persecute you, bless everything, forgive. You live in forgiveness. compassion. Things are not going the way you thought. You're starting to have some misgivings, patience, and trust. Now these are things to be practiced, and it's the practice of them that increases the level of divinity on earth and the possibility of creating actual heaven on earth, which is already on earth, but can extend to your life and to your vibration, you entity hearing me now. So with that I say namaste. Sorry if I was a little long-winded, I meant to be shorter. It's a beautiful garden. Paradise is a garden. I am in the garden, and from there I send love, blessings, good wishes, benedictions, bendiciones.